Joshua Lisec, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, I have to thank James Altucher because that's where I first heard of you. This is about a year ago, I believe it was. It was in June, and I heard him on his show, and I was driving through Montana in the middle of the night. And the moving van that I was driving, I was by myself, and I was going from Washington State to Wisconsin. And it's dark, lonely, just like something out of a movie almost. And I'm listening to this, because it had an AM FM radio that there were no radio stations where I, was, or they're really fuzzy. So, I was just listening to podcasts. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a cool subject. You're a great guest. And I love James, I love his podcast. And I'm like, I gotta have this guy on my show. So here we are. So I couldn't be more happy. When I heard that you were a hypnotist, I immediately went to the movie Office Space. I don't know if you remember that part. Did you see that?
Yes, I recall.
Okay, where the main character gets hypnotized, and before he gets out of the trance, the hypnotist has a heart attack and dies. So he's like permanently in this state, and that's how this movie was. You know, that was the whole thesis of the movie. When did you become a hypnotist?
I became a hypnotist the way that I become most things, and that is writing the book on the subject.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so I've ghostwritten more than 90 books at this point. I think my
Oh,
total number of books is 94, including
holy
four
cow.
that are authored or co-authored under my own name now. And hypnosis is a subject. I've written 7 books on it at this point for various professional hypnotists, both celebrity hypnotists and those who have a local private practice, and they have great word of mouth marketing that have them a career for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
And it was through that process I learned how important this stuff is. Hypnosis stops just short of creating miracles. Now, some people will attribute miraculous results.
Mm.
Of course, that's not medical advice.
Right.
Most people go to hypnosis to lose weight, quit smoking, sleep
Yeah.
better, stress less. And then you hear things like for infertility issues
Hmm.
to
Didn't
regain the
know that.
fertility. And you're
Okay.
like, whoa, really?
Never heard of
Or
that. Yeah.
things like in order to deal with an alcohol or other serious substance abuse issue. And you're like, whoa, okay. And people report fantastic, life-changing, or in some cases, life-creating, haha, results from
Okay.
hypnosis. And then you wonder, if you would apply that in a business context, could you make people buy stuff?
Hmm.
Oh, yes, you could.
See, we're gonna get into that later when it comes to like the book marketing and how that comes out. So there's the teaser. So people got to listen because that's gonna be towards the middle and the end. Let's get to your book right away. Over your shoulder you have, so good they call you a fake. Command attention, monetize your talent stack, and become the uncontested authority in your niche. And maybe I was hypnotized because when I got back from Montana, I bought this book immediately. I couldn't wait to get it. I'm just like, and when it came out in audio, I bought it in audio as well. That's when I know a book really speaks to me. So yeah, that it's fantastic. But I gotta ask you, for the Kindle version, why are you only asking 2.99 for this book?
Yes, so I've done a number of price tests over the years. Most publishers will price Kindle books between 9.99 and 19.99, and I originally had my book at that point.
Yeah,
But what I'm testing is number of readers. So here's something important to know for pricing books. The lower the price, the more readers, the more buyers. The higher the price, the fewer the readers. That tends to be a heuristic, kind of a not rule that works in publishing. And we've got a hardcover that's, depending on the day, it's anywhere between 15 bucks and 30 bucks. And then the
sure.
soft cover, of course, is 20, and the audiobook is what the audiobook is. And I want something that is an impulse purchase because I want to be in as many information environments as possible.
Okay. Now,
So what
do
is
you
an information
suggest?
environment? It's the place in which we consume information. And for
Okay.
for typical people, that's going to be on their smartphone, where people spend 12 plus hours a day nowadays. and I want to be there with the least resistance as possible. And so when people are 6 months after buying the book, they're going on a cross-country airplane flight and they open up their Kindle library. Oh yeah, I bought that Joshua guy's book a few months ago. I should start that. And boom, there I am when they need me. So it is a play for reach over time, knowing that the lower the price, the higher the number. Now, I did not make it free. I did not make it 99 cents because we know that if something is free, the consumption rate is going to be almost zero. So like free lead magnets, roughly 10 to 17% of them, depending on the industry, are actually opened. You know, you go to someone's website and they say, get this free PDF for 7 secrets about secret sevens or something
Right,
like that.
right.
And you'll download it. Or no, actually, you won't download it because you're not in the 10% who actually does. You get on the email list and you totally forget about it. And you're like, who's this person emailing this? What is this about? You completely forgot it because it was free. There was no purchase reasoning or thinking, 2.99. Oh yeah, that's like basically free. I'll buy it. So it's basically free. So the adverb means it's not actually free, but it's basically free. So I allow people to lie them to themselves and make it feel like it was free. Again, a little hypnosis trick.
Okay.
And at the same time, they've done a little bit of a commitment, and now I'm in their information environment. That's the reasoning behind a 2.99 Kindle book.
Now let me ask you this. When you launched the book, was it a 2.99?
No, it was at 9.99.
Okay. That's when did
Yes.
you decide to drop it down to 2.99?
After it was out for maybe 6, 9 months, somewhere in there. No,
Okay.
it was around the holidays actually, giving people around the Christmas holiday season some excuse for what to do during the winter
Oh,
months and whatnot. Buy a little
yeah,
something for yourself.
sure. See, that's very interesting because like with the free philosophy, I've been an independent book publisher for a long time. I shouldn't say a long time, probably about 10 years, but I guess for indie book stuff, that's a long time. And we went through the Kindle Gold Rush where you just kind of threw anything up there and it would sell. Then it was free. Then it was 99 cents. Then it kind of settled at the 2.99 mark. And with the free books, I totally agree with you. They, what do they call them? Free book hoarders. It's like, oh yeah, that looks good. Boom, 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 boom. They're free. I'll just load up my Kindle with these bad boys. It's not costing me anything. And it's like, well, you're not accomplishing as an author what you want to accomplish. So I totally
That's
get
right.
that. That makes
That's right.
total
And I don't want entering into my product ecosystem free book whores. That's not who
yes.
I want.
Yes, exactly. And they leave horrible if they leave a review, they leave horrible reviews usually. Yeah, so yeah, that's not who you want. You want to get somebody in your ecosystem that will actually pay for books and promote your brand without you asking and all that good stuff. All right, so the cover. I absolutely love the cover of this book. How far into the book writing process did you come up with that?
At the very end, even
Oh,
during
okay.
proofreading stage. And the idea was to take something that is recognizable instantly and then alter it so that it doesn't look like it's authentic, but in a kind of a cartoonish way, meaning it's the real deal, but it because of its authentic cartoonishness, you have to double take and
Yes.
make sure that you see what you thought you just saw, which is the message of the book, to create cartoonishly good results for your clients, for your customers, so that the average passerby in your industry who is a prospect has to double take or triple take like that.
Yeah.
And for example, a professional hypnotist, when they so there's one I know of, she has a wall of babies. And it's
Okay.
this massive bulletin board that is one on top of the other, pictures of infants, babies, toddlers. And you ask her what that is, and it's right behind her when she does these meetings and inquiries and intakes and whatnot. You ask her, like, are those your family or like what is that? And she says, oh, no, those are the children of previously infertile mothers who became clients.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she says, that's hypnosis. And then everyone says, where do I sign up and how much of my life savings can I give you?
Right.
That is so good they call you a fake. And then everyone says, no, that's not possible. There's no way. Cope, 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 cope. Everybody has to cope. That's why the very first page of my book is a screenshot of someone whining at me on social media saying, there's no
Right.
way I've written as many books that I have. It's literally impossible. Do the math. The guy's only like 30. There's no way at that time it was like 75 books. There's
Yeah.
no way running the numbers he could have possibly. Why is he lying to us? What is he out to get? Why obviously he's lying. He knows he's lying. Right? It's just cope, 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 cope. Because when you're so good that haters are calling you a fake, that means you've made it. That means you're getting the right kind of attention. Bad reviews from bad people are good reviews, the forward of the book says.
Yeah.
And as you are able to attract negative attention from negative people, they just transmute it into positive feedback, positive attention. And when you have a bunch of negative Nancy's, haters, and naysayers hurling insults at you, people go, "Oh, this person's getting some attention. What's going on over there?"
Sure.
And then they see it. And let's say there's a couple in their early 40s struggling with fertility and have 0 children after 20 years of attempts, and then they see the wall of babies. What's going to happen to them? They're going to sign up so fast, and they
Oh,
do, of course. And in my case, being a ghostwriter, people regularly choose me because I have so much of my work that's public that people will buy the Joshua Lisec library. And that's all of the books they've been able to find that I mentioned in the acknowledgments or as a co-author or as an editor or something like
right.
that. Something like 30 books now that are publicly known as having been Lisecized.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I will have clients who will have on their bookshelf behind me all my books that they've done. And there's no other ghostwriter who has a record that's that public unless it's an agency.
Mm,
And of course, agencies, they hire someone who's never written any books before as a freelancer, and then they slot them in. And if you hate it, then they'll replace them for free. And then it's like, okay, in case my services are so bad, they're going to be free until you find someone you like. Yeah, that's a great promise. That's anti-persuasion that ghostwriting agencies push out there thinking it's actually a money-back guarantee, satisfaction guarantee, risk reversal. It's actually a risk magnifier. Wait, you mean this happens so often that you hire no one who's someone who's never written a book before, and I get to be their guinea pig, and if it's really as bad as you're thinking it's going to be, I get the service for free? I think I'll do Joshua instead. That's the
wow.
outcome.
Damn. Circling back to the bad reviews, do you ever confront these people that is like, there's no way he could do what he's saying he could do?
It depends, case by case basis.
Okay.
If they're particularly negative, I will share their complaint or their trolling using the "so good they call you" prefix.
Okay.
Um, so if someone says I'm a liar and a fraud and obviously use Photoshop, I will post an edited picture of my book cover, and the title will say, and actually the title of my edited cover will say, "So good they call you a liar and a fake who obviously used Photoshop," sharing the person's negative review. And my followers absolutely love that. So I transmute like a literary persuasion alchemist. I transmute lead of hate into the gold of praise. And
Oh,
my fans, customers, clients absolutely love it when I do that. So they're like,
because
okay, more of that, more of that. And
yeah,
then my trolls are instantly neutralized and become fodder for praise.
yeah, because the most thought process on this is, just leave it alone. Let it go. Because you're never gonna win a pissing match. It's like, oh yeah, I did. No, no, you didn't. Oh yeah, I did. And it's like nobody gets anywhere with that. And you kind of look foolish, but you turn it on its head and you kind of have a little bit of fun with it. And like you said, your super fans are gonna be like, oh, cool, do that again.
Yes, exactly. And the effect of that is it becomes risky to attack you. It becomes risky to assault you because then you just look like you're coping, is the
Yeah,
phrase. You're coping with your poor results and are trying to make yourself feel better. So then it becomes it becomes high risk, low reward to attack me personally when
gotcha.
I do that. It's like
Okay.
he's gonna make fun of me. I don't know if I want to do that.
When you're doing a ghost job, do you want or do you have input on the cover of the ghost book that you're writing?
I try as much as possible
Okay.
to have input because covers have changed. Elegant and extravagant cover artwork does not work anymore because, as you know, books now are bought on Amazon. They
Yep.
own 85% of the book buying market. And when someone sees a book cover, it's not up close and personal studying every little quarter square inch. It is the thumbnail on Amazon, surrounded by possibly dozens of other tiny thumbnails the size of yours. And the one that stands out tends to be the one that gets the click, usually amongst the first few results. So that's why you want to have your keyword game on point when you're listing books, either as an independent publisher or as a traditional publisher. You want to have your keyword game on point so that you're close to the top. And then when you are seen, your book needs to look so different, so fresh, so real, so raw. Oh, wow, this is not anything like I've seen before. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Uniqueness is what wins, but simplicity. I know I'm
No.
throwing out a bunch of words, but uniqueness and simplicity, meaning I look at it, I know exactly what it is. I love the cover artwork of Jeb Blunt. Jeb Blunt. It's spelled Blount, O-U, but Jeb Blunt is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
And Jeb Blunt has a number of books on sales. And each of his books is one stock photo against a single colored background. His stuff stands out. It's not busy, it's minimalist. There's one thing. And when you have your book cover, it needs to be one thing. If I at a glance, I kind of get what it is. So when you see the So Good They Call You a Fake cover, and it's the Groucho Marx disguised glasses atop the Mona Lisa, it's cartoonishly fake authenticity, is literally what you were looking at. And that is the message of the book. So in the same way, when you're looking exactly at the thing you're looking at, it needs to be, oh, I know what I'm looking at. Okay, I get it. Versus, here's a picture of a mountain and a person jogging, or here's a picture of the beach with a person walking. Here's a silhouette of workers. You're like, huh? Or fancy schmancy clip art that are in totally different art and design styles. And you're like, what am I looking at here? It's so generic or so clumsy attempt. You don't know it's communicating. It's not really communicating anything. It's like, well, we need something. You do not want a book cover that says, well, we needed something. And so this is the best we could come up with.
Well, back in the days when indie publishing was really coming up, there were some horrible book covers that were just kind of slapped together because they knew if they just got them on Amazon, they'd sell them. It really didn't matter. But now, with competition, you shouldn't be able to tell by looking at a book cover if this was published by a self-published person or from Penguin Random House. The quality should be the same, I think. And also, what do you think about the difference between fiction and nonfiction? Because in fiction, you want the cover should match the reader's, like genre expectations. I'm not going to have a picture of a spaceship. They call it what? Spaceship ass. A lot of these like sci-fi, like Space Marines and all that. You have this ginormous spaceship, circling around or going around a planet, and
Yeah.
there's their weapons and all that stuff, and that's not a cozy mystery. You shouldn't put that on a cozy mystery.
You have a point there. You have a point there. And there's two things about fiction. So what I've said for nonfiction, uniqueness, obviousness, simplicity. Oh, I know exactly the message of the book at a glance.
Right.
And usually using wordplay, but visual wordplay,
Mm,
uh, works. It works. So if your book is on the topic of, like, let's say sports, well, maybe one or two of the letters are replaced by, like, the L is replaced by a hockey stick, for example,
yeah, sure.
and the O is replaced by a baseball. Like,
Mm,
oh, okay, now you understand the visual wordplay where you infuse into the cover itself what the book is about using visual wordplay. Now, going over to fiction, you are correct that the book needs to look like it's genre appropriate and it needs to look like it was published by one of the big fiction publishers.
yes.
That said, if I at a glance I feel like I've already read that book. If it looks that genre appropriate, if it looks that similar, it's going to be invisible. So, what a way to combat that is unique colors, unique
Mm,
pop. If most of the colors have a dark and brooding background, for example, if you're scrolling through the search results and they all kind of start to blur together until you don't really know what's what. Well, what would happen if you flip the colors so that a lighter color popped and the dark was in the background, for
Oh,
example?
yeah.
What would happen if you use a different type of image that still looked professional and appropriate, not some silly basic stock photo that everyone else has used already in all of their free marketing on social media? But it was a professional image. It was well done, but the colors were different. And it's still, if it's murder mystery, okay, that looks like a murder mystery book. But scrolling through search results, I'm going to notice it. It's going to pop out. It's going to be one of these things is not like the other.
Right.
Okay.
You want it unique, but you don't want it unique.
That's right. It's unique in that I should notice it because the color scheme, the color
Mm.
palette, the brightness is what pops. It's the one of these things is not like the other. But if it's, let's say, sci-fi fantasy, I look at it and it's obviously a sci-fi fantasy book. It does not look like a murder mystery. It does not look like an action adventure thriller, for example.
Okay.
It needs to be genre appropriate. And what it is it's depicting, but it needs to pop differently so that it stands out. So if there's 12 books that are a black background or really dark background, we want to have a white or light background, for example. But whatever imagery is on there is indicative of it being whatever the genre is that it is.
That's very interesting because right, I'm keyed in on this because I'm starting the cover process for a work in progress that I'm doing right now. It's more or less if John Wick, um, let's see, John Wick, Dexter, and oh, what was that movie with Charles Bronson? Death Wish got together and had a baby. That's my book. It's very Dexter-like, and instead of the serologist being the serial killer, it's the police chaplain that nobody
Mhm.
suggests. Nobody thinks that this guy, everybody loves him. He can walk in and out of crime scenes. He has access to all the computers, but he rights all the wrongs. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to maybe have a little bit, there should be some imagery, as far as like religion goes, maybe a little bit. And I'm gonna call it the good collar. Some sins can never be forgiven. So, I'm looking at that kind of genre. It's kind of darker silhouettes. You don't see like the main character's face per se. So I was thinking maybe like a priest collar and something policey. I don't know. What would you do if you had that project?
So I would first search for the books and the movies you just recommended and also like
Mm.
novelizations of the movies and look at
Yes.
the colors.
Oh, okay.
Where are the colors? Where is the title laid out? The image is going to be, I think, relatively straightforward. Like the different supporting images that you've talked about, the imagery and the symbols to kind of get the message across. But the layout is what's going to be key, and the colors and the spacing and how white space is used or is not used, and placement of everything. So that if I'm scrolling in search results, I lay eyes on yours. I don't skip over it. That's going to be key. So look at the others and then do the opposite of what they all did in terms of brightness and color choices. Again, the one of these things is not like the other effect. Because
Yeah.
I see 11 or 12 other books that look just like the other ones that I can't really tell the difference. And then I see yours, it pops out. But whatever the image is, I notice and I say, oh, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
two things are happening. Their subconscious mind noticed it because it was different. They're just kind of running on autopilot in search results. And then they see yours, they lay eyes on it, and they notice it because of the color difference. And then it registers logically, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I probably want to read that.
Oh, okay. I love that. And if it doesn't sell, I'm gonna say, "Darn you, Josh." I'm gonna blame
Then
you,
it
of
could be
course.
then it could be a keyword choice skill issue.
Okay. So how do you
Yeah.
start your
You
career?
need to be in the top of search results to be in the running, right?
Yes,
In order
yes,
to have influence, you need attention.
absolutely. So how did you start your career in ghostwriting?
Totally by accident. I was a novelist. That's how I began. Began as a novelist 2011, 2012-ish, kind of that season of my life. End of college immediately after. And the objective for me at the time was to making a living rather as a novelist. And I did get a very small book deal with an independent publishing press, 2012. Two books come out, two novels. and I'm signing and doing events and like living the dream and wow, this is exactly what I wanted. And then something strange happens. Two people who'd read the book asked if I could help them write their book. Now, they were wanting to write nonfiction books. Nonfiction. You're asking a fiction ghostwriter with nonfiction? Heck's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Oh, no, 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 Joshua, you don't understand. It's not like history or business. It's a memoir. I want it to read like a novel, but it be true. Oh, I get it now. You want the novelization of your life story. Correct. Not a Wikipedia style entry, which I could write
Right.
myself. Let's talk. And so I've been ghostwriting ever since.
Oh, wow. So was it more or less word of mouth? And, it's like, okay, you do good work, and the person you did it for, they have a friend say, hey, you know what? I know this Joshua guy. He kicks butt.
Exactly. From 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then 16 into the year 2017, that's when things took off because the clients I began working with had bigger and bigger networks.
Okay.
And so when they would post on their Facebook page, for example, that they were working with me, I would get 20 messages from potential clients. And it has
Wow.
not slowed down since then.
Dang. Very good. Well, that's great. Good for you. Now, the role of ghostwriter. What do you say when somebody says, it's cheating?
I refer them to patent attorneys and to CPAs. This idea that ghostwriting is cheating. Okay, so you have a great idea for this invention. And you could put together your patent application by yourself. You could do literally all the work and get your patent application. Or you could hire a patent attorney who knows what works to get a patent approved, who knows all the sections, who knows how to document prior art and efficiently and sufficiently distinguish your invention from all the prior material, invention, work, art, and so on and so forth. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to include all of that. I thought in order to have a patent, I had to do it all myself. I thought in order to write a book, I had to write literally every word myself, or it was cheating. No, because then you're going to get rejected by the patent office. I mean, you're going to get rejected by readers. Same with CPAs. You want a qualified tax professional, a tax accountant, certified public accountant reviewing your books. But I thought they're my taxes. Like I'm supposed to do those numbers myself. I thought they're my books. I'm supposed to run all those numbers myself. Okay, maybe you do if you want to get audited or get jail time. Then you can say, I didn't cheat, and yet you did. And yet you
Um,
did.
okay.
And so it is with ghostwriting. So many people think that when you hire a ghostwriter, you are having that person write literally every single word themselves and making it all up, and you have no idea what's in there. That is the case with many political books, by the way.
Okay.
And so there was a rather hilarious controversy with South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who had a number of ridiculous claims in her latest book that came out a few weeks ago. And when she began giving interviews for it, she was challenged on this, and then she immediately blamed her ghostwriter and her editor.
Oh.
And then she canceled her book tour.
Oh.
And then two
Okay.
weeks into the book tour, she starts giving interviews again, and she says, "Ghostwriter? What are you talking about? I've never worked with a ghostwriter before. What are ghostwriters? I don't even know what ghostwriting is. What are you talking about?" So, a botched PR nightmare and then botching the cleanup attempt of the PR mess. And this is likely because she did ghostwriting wrong, which is speak with the ghostwriter for a couple of hours and then get everything else from Wikipedia and, interviews I've given in the past and just put it together in a book and I'll approve it, which is very typical, by the way, for political books, current events books, books that are supposed to raise a person's profile nationally.
Mm,
Now, Christy Nome was a hopeful for President Trump's vice presidential nomination or pick rather for
yeah.
2024, hence her book. And so when you rush something like that of that importance and the ghostwriter doesn't have a sense of reader sensibilities and commercial viability, you get that career-ending crisis, to put it lightly. put it lightly. Perhaps she'll have success in local politics, but not on the national stage after that
Okay.
debacle. But I want to be straightforward, and that is atypical. I need 3 months with my client, talking to them every single week, getting their stories, experiences, insights, etc. But I'm like the patent attorney. I know what needs to be in a patent application.
Hmm.
I know how to document prior art and distinguish your invention from it. I mean, I know how to create a commercially viable manuscript. You see, I know how to structure it. I know what to start with, how to end it, titling, subtitling, section headers, Chicago manual style citation formatting and layout. All these things that if you don't know, the patent office is going to reject you. Readers are going to reject you.
Okay.
The IRS auditing office is going to love you, though.
Darn them. So I want to hire you as a ghostwriter. What is the process? And is this you mainly do nonfiction, it looks like, and like memoirs?
The vast majority of books that I do are nonfiction, yes. There have been a number of memoirs, which are the novelization of someone's life. So,
Right.
from my perspective, they are fiction. They are
Okay.
fiction. They're written like fiction, where you have the arcs, you have the characters, you have a theme, multiple themes, motifs, they're called.
Sure.
You have character growth, and you have throughout the book not a series of episodes in your life that are disconnected to one another, but there's drive from one thing to the next. There's an action and there's a consequence of that. And then the way you react to that has a consequence, so on and so forth. So there's almost like a storyline of your life. Now, if you're looking at your life every moment of every single day, it's going to be really, really boring. But when you think about actually every biopic that you've ever watched that has sold well, there was an inciting incident in the person's life. Now, in reality, that was probably one of 12 moments of mediocrity that came in the person's life. But the director or screenwriter or biographer, looking backwards, tried to reimagine their life as if that
Hmm.
was the pivotal moment. They try to say, well, all the dominoes that eventually fell over, that was the first domino to fall that led them in this direction. And there are some moments in life that are absolutely like that. So if someone has a horrific step parent and there's a particular episode of abuse, let's say, that resulted in them eventually serving 12 years in prison for second-degree murder, yeah, that was probably it. That's probably it. Um, if, let's say, you survived an assassination attempt early in your career, yeah, that was probably it.
Hmm.
Or it could be, what was it that brought you ultimately to that moment? What was the previous inciting incident that put you on this path to have this career that put you in such danger at such a young age?
Yeah.
Was there a car accident that you were in that broke 11 bones in your body and you were dead for 6 minutes legally? That's probably it.
Okay.
Other times it's less clear. And even then, you still have to choose the one that makes sense. Like, so let's say I had this great experience and I got into Ivy League school and it was amazing. And I was the first person to ever attend college in my family and I got into Harvard University. And then a couple semesters in, I dropped out and I went to a local community college. I graduated with an associate's degree, actually. And then I became a nurse 17 chapters later. And then something interesting happened. Nope, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Just because it
Okay.
was eventful does not mean that it was the inciting incident.
Okay.
What we don't want is the letdown. If we want a commercially viable memoir, if we want a commercially viable memoir. But the process that you asked about initially a couple of minutes ago was what is the initial process? So first, I need to vet the person to see that they're, as an aspiring author, they're teachable, they're coachable, they're systems minded. So they're not, hey, let's run and gun and see how it goes and you do what I say. That doesn't tend to work. That's what a personality doesn't work. But someone who understands that books that work have a specific structure, they have a specific cadence. We break the rules that we know are there to be broken, for example, but we know what the rules are first. And they just have that personality. But they're driven not from ego, because I've worked with those in the past, and I've had enough experience with people that I do not want to work with. I
Okay.
know how to kind of vet for that. So one of the requirements for working with me is having read so good they call you a fake. If you're not
Okay.
willing to do that, you're not allowed to be a client. Full stop.
Okay.
And then after that, we lay out the process. Okay, most authors, it's going to be 5 to 8 months from And now this is independent authors. If they want the book done and out, we will actually help with all of that. To ghostwriting, I add ghost publishing.
Yes, I was going to
Ghost
talk about
publishing
that.
is
Yep.
where we actually produce the thing as a real book that is indistinguishable from a book that's produced by the big five publishing houses. Some of our authors even want those books in stores, which we've been able to do. They've sold the translation rights and the international rights in specific countries and geographies to major publishers in those countries while still retaining the benefit of being domestically published independently. So
Yes.
they can have the best of both worlds. And it's usually a 5 to 8 month process to get from Joshua, I'm a consultant. I really think my practice would be served by having a book that elevates me above everyone else in my space who has way more experience, but I wrote the book on it. And it's the best book they've ever read on that topic. That's what I want. And so then we'll start from there. And then 5 to 8 months later, they've got themselves a book, a
Now,
real book.
is
That's
this
the best way
done
to say
with,
it.
do you start out with like a questionnaire and it's like, okay, you vetted the person, they read your book. Okay, we're going forward with this. Do you require like a outline from them first? And then, you go from there, or do you sit down and just interview them for hours, or what does that look like?
The less I have, the better from the
Really?
author.
Okay.
Yes. Imagine if you're trying to renovate a house versus build a new house, which is more complex?
Probably the renovation, right?
Shoehorning into an existing structure what you want to do versus just doing it entirely from scratch.
Yeah, I would think so.
And that is how the book writing process
Oh, okay.
goes. The more material someone has, the more complicated and even more expensive, which surprises people. But there have been times where people have sent me a manuscript and said, Joshua, it just needs some light editing, maybe some proofreading, couple typos, it's all
Mm,
good. And I'll review it and I'll say, here's what I see. Um, so let's delete that file and open up a new Word document, a blank one, and begin.
okay.
And some people say, okay, you're the expert. Other people say, how dare you? So I also need people who can handle the truth as clients,
Wow.
who are not
So,
easily offended. People who are
okay.
easily offended are not very good clients of mine, which is
Okay.
why I try to be a little barbed and a little prickly and nuance free in my social media and other content marketing, because I want people who are not fragile. And so I do what I can to break fragile people out of my funnel, frankly, give them an out like, wow, this guy's a jerk. If someone thinks that for one of my low-key posts on any socio-political commentary I post, good. They would not have been coachable. They would not have been teachable. They would have
Okay.
second guessed themselves, me, and themselves all over again in the process. So knowing who you want and it also means knowing who you don't want. And focusing on what could I post that keeps my least desirable clients far away from me? What will get them to block me on all social media? You think about it, and then you post that.
Okay. Again, you're just like the bad reviews. That's, it's kind of along those lines.
Fragile reviews from fragile people create an anti-fragile marketing funnel.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask, cultivating organic haters is good for your brand. That's one of your quotes, and I think we understand what that means now. Yeah, so, all right. So you've ghostwritten about 90 books now.
That's right.
A lot are self-helpish kind of books. Have you jumped on the bandwagons or become advocates for some of the books that you write?
A few, yes, where I'm a co-author, or it's with Joshua Lisec, or I'm mentioned in the acknowledgments, or the author regularly will post on social media, guys, you need to hire at Joshua Lisec. My book was amazing, yours can be too. I have a number of evangelists and champions like that, you might say.
Yeah, because was the book Stay Off My Operating Table? The Dr. Philip Ovadia wrote the
That's right.
foreword.
And he contributed the forward to
Yes,
So Good They Call You a Fake. He was a fantastic client. And he was someone that we brought from, now obviously he had industry credibility,
right.
but he had no notoriety or no visibility. And he had just launched a telehealth practice. And when you just launch a medical business of any kind, what you do not want is obscurity. You need to obscure yourself as
Okay.
quickly as possible. And what Phil did, what he chose to do to unobscure himself, was to make himself visible, make himself known, and make himself be the go-to clinic for out-of-pocket payers, which is very difficult to do when people are used to
Oh yeah,
buying through their insurance and getting, a discounted rate. He says, no, you
absolutely.
pay cash or you go home. It's a much more difficult pitch to land. And so he thought, what's the best thing like I could do to achieve all my business goals? Author a book. Author a book. That's the best way to achieve all of my business goals. And so he did, and then he did.
Yeah, and he walked the walk because he was morbidly obese. You know, the backstory, I won't go into it too much, but the backstory is morbidly obese. He lost a bunch of weight, and it's just a different way of thinking about heart health. And because he was a cardiologist, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, he was a surgeon. So he's carved into a lot of chests and, fixed a lot of hearts. And his goal was, the title of the book, stay off my operating table. So that's my
That's
next
right.
book I'm gonna read because how can you not? I love that. And he's got a podcast too, actually. It's
That's right.
very good. All right. Have any of these books given you life-changing advice that you have implemented on a regular basis?
Any of my own books that I've worked on or others for other people. Um, so not one of the most influential personal development author of all time is a man named Scott Adams.
Okay.
Particularly going back to his days as the Dilbert cartoonist,
Oh
but
yeah,
then
yeah.
authoring How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Every book published since 2013 is a rewrite of those ideas. That book has reached probably 2 to 3 billion people directly and indirectly,
Wow.
because every self-help book now that's effective is a spin-off of those ideas, if not copying and pasting those ideas. We now see books coming out that are perennial bestsellers and are on the New York Times bestseller list for 2 or 3 years. And if you go in there, it's a word for word rewrite of something that was in Scott's book in 2013. But
Wow.
working with Scott Adams, he's a client of mine. He is a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun. And he regularly talks me up and mentions that he works with Joshua Lisec, so you should go hire him too if he's available. Just don't steal him from me.
I believe he has been on James Altucher's show and Tim Ferriss's as well.
That's right, he has.
Yeah. And I've listened to him on there and I'm just like, oh yeah, absolutely. Any others that you can think of?
Any of the books that I do are that are on persuasion or hypnosis, which inform the work that I do and teach me things and inspired me to become a professional certified practitioner of hypnosis and become a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists and do that sort of work and then reintegrate it, separately and then together into my ghostwriting work and working with clients. That's a lot of fun.
Okay, so let's talk hypnosis here. Books are a form of hypnosis. That's a quote from you. Could you explain that?
Yes, when someone is reading, they are in a slight trance, where the information is coming in and grappling with it, disagreeing with it, pushing back against it. That resistance is lowered when you're reading a book. It's like when you're eating something. When you're eating something, that's going into your body. When you're reading something, it's going into your brain. Now, there is such thing as vomiting, of course. And
Yeah.
there is, of course, resistance that some people have to a book. And it triggers their cognitive dissonance, where they're reading something that disagrees with what they believed was true, and then they vomit word salad, let's say,
Right.
metaphorically speaking, and disagreeing with it and try to cope, as I like to say, throw the book down, never pick it up again. We want not to produce that kind of resistance. We want to alter someone's beliefs so that we can drive new behaviors through the book. And that's what hypnosis does. So reading a book is like self-hypnosis in print.
So how do you do that? How do get these people into this vacuum of you want to like inform, entertain, inspire, whatever the book is trying to, do.
The answer to that, the answer to that is why I get paid the big bucks.
Okay.
The abridged answer is in So Good They Call You a Fake, where there's a line of dominoes is the metaphor that I use. where what belief has to fall in what order, meaning what belief has to be replaced with a new, more effective, more useful belief, all the way down to belief that they want to continue doing business with you and buy everything else after having read your book, and then buying their work, buying the workbook and buying the course, and then buying your coaching services package, so on and so forth. And it's a chain of beliefs concept where one falls on top of the other, and there you go. And what is the first belief? What's the second belief? That is how hypnosis works when someone's undergoing hypnosis structure, or rather, a structured set of hypnotic suggestions. What do they need in the order that they need them? And that maps directly onto hypnosis succession, is the outline of a Joshua Lisec book. So
Okay.
it's hypnotizing your readers, not just to give them what they want and need, but to give you what you want and need too. It's mutually beneficial hypnosis.
Wow. Very cool. Never thought of it that way. So have you ever turned down a job because of the topic?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Can you
And it's usually
can
because
you say like
usually
some
because of the personality, where
oh, okay.
they will say, "Oh, I'm totally right about this, 100%." Um, where they will say, "I've been working on this pet theory of mine in this industry, and it changes everything." And then I hear it, and I disagree with 50% of it, and it's easy to find counters to their claim,
Mm,
or they will contradict themselves. This is always a lot of fun. I had this project come across my desk, and I was reading something, and I thought, well, that's obviously not true. So I asked the aspiring author who wanted me to expand his notes into this whole book, and I said, when you said, and then I quoted him, what did you mean by that? And then you know what he said to me? I never said any such thing, Joshua. What are you talking about? Getting all defensive.
mm.
I thought, we're done here. We are done here. I see where this is going to go. This is going to be a nightmarish client to work with.
So is it
And so it's
hard?
usually not the topic. Um,
Yeah, because I was thinking to
it
myself,
usually has to do with the personality.
okay, because I was thinking to myself, we all have our own point of view on stuff, politics, religion, whatever. I would almost think you'd have to be agnostic to kind of just be neutral. You'd have to be Switzerland to do your job.
I am pretty Swiss.
Yeah.
My brother's wife is Swiss, ironically, or maybe perhaps unironically. But
Okay.
regardless, there is a suspension of disbelief. There's an adopting of, if this worldview were true, here was how I would write from that perspective. And
Wow.
then so it's easy to get into that mode and kind of put on their beliefs as if they're mine. And then when I'm done with the job, I take them off.
Okay. Now, I know we're kind of winding down here. We have a hard stop time. Again, you've written almost 90 books. What's your writing process? Do you dictate a lot? Are there extensive plots? I mean, do you plot? Do you write by the seat of your pants, special writing software? What does it look like?
I don't have anything that is tool or tool-like for this. There's no special software. I do like to work from transcripts as much as possible. I'm interviewing with the author, but then the transcripts themselves have to be edited and restructured and
Right.
revised, and that can take longer than writing the whole dang thing itself. But it's still essential because of what we talked about. I have a course called The Best Way to Say It, which is my writing process.
Okay.
And it starts with the big idea of the book, the big idea of each chapter, the big idea of each section. And when you know what those are all ahead of time, the big idea, the medium idea, and the little ideas
Yeah.
in your outline, and you have a 25-page outline, well, you know where everything's going to be. So then when you interview the author, you copy and paste the sections of those transcripts from those
Mm.
sections into those sections.
Okay.
You're brain dumping everything. You're having them brain dump. It's like guided brain dumping, right? And then you restructure all of it. So, okay, there's a big idea, medium idea, little idea. Are the little ideas in the right order? Were
Okay.
there two intermediate sized ideas, medium ideas that actually are three? Okay, expand it, break it up. It's really moving the structure around, moving the pieces around, and
Okay.
then and only then refining it, revising it, persuasionizing it, as I like to say, once everything is in the right place.
Okay.
And so it is an orderly process, it's a fast process, and in my experience, it's the only process that can produce this much volume at this quality for this long for someone who's so young.
Okay. Again, we're winding down. So I just want to ask a couple more questions. This is a big one, but just a couple things from it. Common mistakes you see writers make with their marketing or craft.
The most common marketing mistake with writing, publishing, authorship, anything word related is believing that the job of the author is to write things. The job of the writer is to write stuff. It is not. The job of the writer or the author is to get results. Your book is a tool to fix something. So does it fix it? How will I know it's fixed it? How easy is it to use to fix it? This sort of language is unfamiliar, foreign,
Yeah,
alien,
it
offensive
is.
even to people who think their job is to be creative. It is not. What looks creative is in fact a hyper detailed process honed through numerous reps over many years. It's a difference between watching a puppet show and being behind the curtain and watching the same puppet show.
Mhm. Interesting.
One
Uh,
is art and one is a science. The
So
science creates the art.
the way you just explained that, that makes perfect logical sense to me for nonfiction. What about fiction?
It is the same for fiction. It
It
is the
is.
same for fiction. Yes. Because a story, a novel, has a job to do. And that job to do is distract. Give me escape.
Yeah. Or
Take me out of
entertain.
my
Yeah.
miserable little mediocre life. No offense, but this is why people read fiction and stories and whatnot. They want to escape. Notice that people who are living large in their lives, they're living effectively the plot of a novel. They're not reading novels unless it's like Ulysses or something, or something that is,
Right.
300, 200, 300 years old or 1,000 years old, or it's like an ancient holy scripture, for example. Um, but people read, okay, I'll give you a fun example of this. Romance novels. Who reads steamy, hot, sexy romance novels? Women who are not in steamy, hot, romantic, sexy relationships.
That's very true.
They're trying to escape their lack of lifestyle with something that is all the things that they want. It's literary pornography. It's what it is. People who read mysteries, why do they read mysteries? Because every aspect of their lives is predictable.
Mm.
Why do people read crime fiction? Because every aspect of their lives is perfectly safe and predictable. So on and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So the more you can give people a new escape, a deeper escape than what they're used to, the more effective that tool is, the more successful you're likely to be, especially if you write 10 or more books in the genre, so that one customer can become 10x the value to you. This
Right.
is how fiction authors make big money, by the way.
The
It's 10
super
plus
fan.
books in the same genre, and they know that their book is a tool to get a job done.
Mm. Very cool. Let's finish up with artificial intelligence, AI. The horses are out of the barns. Can it and when will it take over your job? Or will it just help you out creating more books?
It's more helpful than hurtful, though I will say that AI is better than 95% of writers as of June 2024. So ChatGPT 4 or 3 rather released in December 2022. We're little over 18 months into this business and it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. For most things. For most things. What it's not phenomenal for, people hire me for. Or people like me. There's like 2 or 3 other ghostwriters that I think are good. That are perfectly fine alternatives to the Joshua Lisec experience. But the vast majority of others, no chance. Because think about it. AI is good, fast, and cheap. I say this in So Good They Call You Fake, chapter 1. It's good, fast, and cheap. But with most ghostwriters, you have to pick 2 of those, or just one of those. It's good
Mm,
and fast, but not cheap, or it's good and cheap and not fast.
right.
So for the vast majority of written content that you need, $20 a month on ChatGPT 4.0, good, fast, and cheap.
Mm. Where do you see the future with this though? Where do you see it going?
Probably more of that, and also this is why I'm raising my own profile, is personal brand driven aspirational authors, meaning people will want to hire me because they've read my books and they love my work and they want their book to be as good as mine, which typical ghostwriter does not have anything that's publicly available. So they rarely will get jobs. It's only the people who become famous ghostwriters, famous for being a ghostwriter, and their books are also great. Those are the ones who are going to survive.
You see a day where you go into Barnes and Noble or Amazon, and there's gonna be two sections where it's AI written book and human written book.
No one wants to read something that's explicitly by AI. So I think the industry will keep that under wraps as long as possible. Much the same way that the New York Times bestseller list is opaque and there's not any known public way for accounting for those numbers, like there is for the Amazon bestseller list, which is accurate by the hour.
Right. I was gonna talk about that, but we're running out of time, so that'll be for another day for sure. All right, Josh. This has been fantastic, and the more I talk to you, the more the wheels are turning, and I know the people listening and watching, it's the same way. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on. But where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, the first and most obvious place is Lisec, Lisec, ghostwriting.com, Lisec, ghostwriting.com. And then I'm at Joshua Lisec on all of the platforms. Most people prefer to follow me on Twitter X now,
Okay.
as well as YouTube. My best shenanigans, text and video are both there.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Patrick. Thanks for having me on.